Look at that. 3 chicklets on the screen. Let's go. We took our first gap week in a long, long time on the 5 to Go podcast. We're going to digest a breakthrough Hocevar win at Talladega and a familiar winner at Kansas Speedway, and also get into NASCAR's leadership shakeup, some other controversy about the future of NASCAR, and a rarity in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, and not in a great way. And as we look ahead to Texas here on 5 to Go. And welcome to the show. I'm your co-host, Doug Fireball Turnbull, from the traffic team at 11 Alive News with Rachel Cox-Rosen and Atlanta Journal-Constitution Gridlock Guy, and of course, part of the PRN announcing team as well. And they'll be in action at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend for Trucks O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Cup Series. Triple header weekend there in Fort Worth, Texas, or technically No Limits, Texas, as they made around the city there. But welcome to the show. We got a lot to get into there. I just want to get right out of the gate and apologize. My vacation week happened to coincide with a week where our co-host Devin Kupka here worked, including travel hours, some 151 hours, or about 75 and a half hours on average per week over the last 2 weeks. So he just was not able to break away and do a show. The week before that, Dan Elliott had some technical difficulties, so it was kind of me doing a solo soliloquy, wrapping up what we did at Bristol thing. And we just haven't had to get on and do our proper show with 3 generations of representation here. So sorry about that. But sorry, it was our first non-show week in a really long time. So thank you for tolerating it, and welcome in. Let's get Devin Kupka in here. Of course, he is our University of North Georgia alum, our roving racing journo. Hashtag hire Devin Kupka. Yes, he was gainfully employed those 2 weeks, but come on, he wants to serve you media-wise. Hashtag hire Devin Kupka. Dev, you look like you haven't been through anything, man. You all right?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm ready to keep going too. I mean, if you want to put me on for another 70-hour week, let's go. But High Point, we had a successful Culver's Open in High Point, North Carolina. Happened to coincide with Furniture Mart as well, so we got to see a lot of those people come in too. But it was a successful Open. We're excited to serve the High Point community. It's a lot of work, but it was good work too. So, and there we go, Curdtober.
Man,
Doug's got
Curdtober is something I took.
have.
I got prescribed medicine for one time. But yeah, so Curdtober, that is a name. That is quite a name. Better than Turdcober, to be fair. Better than Turdcober. But Dev, no, you look no worse for the wear, man. You look no worse for the wear, and you're back at it later this afternoon. But no, you want to get in the media ranks, man. Hashtag hire Devin Kupka. Dev, you and I were both in Bristol, had a big time up there, and then you were straight to work right after that. So thanks for your hard work here on the podcast, and of course, serving the community elsewhere, man, helping more people get some of that tasty food in their gullets. Also joining us, of course, a master maker of speed, and when he's not traveling all over with Dan Jr., he is in that Dawsonville speed garage there, getting those transmissions ready for action. Dano, Elliott, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Hope everybody is as well. We got a little refreshing rain this morning. Felt real good. The air feels good. So, Devin looking good. So, we're breathing good today.
We were. That's how I felt in Slovenia last week, where Momo and I went on our anniversary and her birthday trip, as we do every time of year, or every year around that time of April. So it's good to be back with you fellas, and certainly feeling refreshed there. We're right back at it, though. Let's get into it. So while I was away, I got to listen to the end of this race, or the last chunk of it, on the Motor Racing Network. Couldn't watch it overseas. I listened to the beginning, went to bed, listened to the end. Basically, that's how it worked for me when I woke up in the middle of the night being jet lagged overseas. But we saw Tyler Reddick get his 5th win in 9 races there at Kansas Speedway. We saw Taylor Gray get his 2nd career O'Reilly Auto Parts Series win, and Gio Ruggiero, and probably the best car in the ARCA Series, the Joe Gibbs Racing number 18, go to victory lane. And then jump ahead, I got back from that trip really just in time. I got done with some chores just in time to turn on the beginning of the Cup race. And then I got home from church in time to see the end of Carson Hocevar. As many of you, I'm sure, that have watched this know, get his breakthrough career victory. I believe it was in start number 91 of his career, and that is 2 weeks after, as Devin noted, that Ty Gibbs got his first career win and career start number 131. So big deal for both of those young drivers, each 23 years old there. So far, and I think the third or fourth time he's run this year, the black laden number 77 Chili's Ride the Dente Chevrolet. That it's not an Earnhardt knockoff paint scheme, but it's got the red numbers on it, and the black background, the white trim. So it has notes of Earnhardt, if you will. And he debuted that, I believe, at COTA, if I'm not mistaken, the third race of the year. And I don't want to say put on quite a show coming to the checkered flag, because it was two single file lines and nobody could break out a line, but he certainly did what he needed to do and won the drag race with Chris Buescher to the checkered flag. The show seemed to be afterwards in the celebration, which I want to talk a little bit about in a moment, and then just all the antics after, including taking the trophy to Chili's back in North Carolina thereafter. His sponsor got all sorts of mentions, the president of Chili's, all this stuff. That they are getting bang for the buck on that sponsorship. We also saw two other first-time winners this past weekend at Talladega. Corey Day, breakthrough win of the O'Reilly Series, much like Hocevar, heavily criticized for some bad moves he made early in the year. And then Andy Jankowiak, the veteran part-time driver out of Western New York, the Buffalo area, he gets his first win. Outdueling in overtime, Cletus McFarland, who Jankowiak would probably get cheered like crazy any other time he'd win. But since he beat Cletus, the superstar that Cletus is, he got booed when he won the race. Nonetheless, still very happy there. So let's size up Talladega. I didn't see a ton of stories out of Kansas there, except Reddick being dominant, I guess. Let's size up Talladega. And Devin, since you haven't been with us in a minute, I'll come to you first. What's your big overall takeaway from the weekend, whether it is the racing itself or whether it's the cast of characters with the victory lane or something else?
Yeah, I thought Talladega really lived up to that NASCAR Hell Yeah campaign that they've been doing all season long, especially with how the race ended. I had to catch a majority of the race on Sunday on Sirius XM through the Motor Racing Network, and listening to the majority of the race on the radio, then catching the last couple of laps at the wrong restaurant at Texas Roadhouse in Anderson, South Carolina. But I thought the racing was pretty decent, and it was interesting to hear how long that first stage was. That first stage was over, I think, an hour long, and it just made things interesting. And then it seemed like
they took the third stage and made it the first stage. I mean, yeah, it was weird though. You kept thinking, well, certainly it's about to end, right? Because it's stage one. You're just programmed to think but they made it twice as long to combat the fuel saving, or to make the fuel saving happen more early, so the late stages have more urgency. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was definitely interesting, because it's like, well, I've been in the car for so long, and the first stage still hasn't ended, but it felt like you're listening to a road course race, because there was the talk of flipping the stages, which you only ever hear at the road course races, which I always think that was kind of weird to hear that for an oval track, but that was certainly interesting to hear. And then the big one, I didn't get to see it, heard it on the radio, then caught a replay later. That's crazy that initially only 4 cars looked like it made it out of the pack, so that made things really interesting early on. But to see Hocevar pull off the moves late in the race, especially with the 5 laps to go, was really, really impressive to see, and it was good to see him finally get that breakthrough win. And now we had 3 drivers going into the season where we said, oh, who's going to win their first race? Well, 2 of the 3 have already gotten that taken care of now, that being Ty Gibbs and now Carson Hocevar, so all eyes are on Connor Zilisch. But Hocevar, I think that might be the coolest burnout I've ever seen in NASCAR. If you want to even call it a burnout, I call it more of a celebration. But I think it's really cool, and it's going to be an iconic moment when you look back in the sport's history.
Yeah, much like the Hail Melon. All right. It's the NASCAR. Well, let's get to that in a moment, because you're right. That was a. I want to ask Dan about it. Dan, we're going to get your overall thought for the weekend in a moment. But you promoted a track. You're a father. You're a grandfather. And we love Hell Yeah, and we love no rules. Just right. Wasn't that a Chili's campaign at one point, or was that Applebee's? I can't remember. Whatever. Anyway, but I gotta say, when I saw him hanging out of the car, I was like, oh, is he stuck or something? What's going on? And then Kevin Harvick or Clint Boyer on TV Dan says, no, he's up to something. He's pulling something. And then he started driving without the car, almost ran it into the wall. Then he drove along the front stretch and then purposefully ran into the wall to do the grinding burnout with the nose of the wall. And I got to say, Traffic Doug, not NASCAR Doug, came out on that one because I've gotten screamed at before for driving on a car one time with my brother sitting on the trunk or hanging out the door or something like that. And I got screamed at by an adult at my church when I was a teenager who had seen somebody get badly hurt hanging out of a car. Granted, I was driving slowly in a parking lot and I'm not a professional driver. Carson Hocevar is. But Dan, I was thinking about track promoter Dan when I saw that. And I would love to know what you thought about it because what I saw was a giraffe hanging out of a car about to scrape his head on the ground.
It's not one of those things that I'm going to go ballistic over and say, no, we need to do away with this, because when I first heard on the broadcast that this was a one and done deal celebration, I thought with the, I didn't know per se that it would end up being this way, no penalty, no problem with that. But I really did think with the new and improved NASCAR, the way that they've tried to promote it lately, that it wasn't going to be frowned upon like a lot of things we've seen in the past. And that was just my gut reaction when I first saw it. The second reaction was, this is fun and games till it ain't fun and games. And it if you can hold this to kind of what it is one thing, but let's see where this leads to, because I've got a feeling that this is going to lead to a little bit more that may kind of, it's kind of like bump drafting. It was all fun and games till the bump drafting got stupid. And then it's kind of like the old saying, last words of a redneck. Hey, y'all, watch this. And it was the perfect place for that. I like the celebration, but like I said, it's all fun till it ain't fun, and then it'll be one of those things where it seems like on the outside looking in, it'll be one of those things where they're all for it this past weekend, but when something happens, we're going to crack down hard on it. We're going to have a line drawn in the sand that this won't happen anymore, and I don't want to see that. I want to see the excitement. I want to see the level that I saw at Talladega, because my overall assessment of Talladega was the fact that we saw a lot of different things at Talladega this time that I enjoyed seeing. New names, new faces, new winners, different scenario from races in the past. And I like that. I like the excitement. I like the crowd that was at Talladega. I love the, it's kind of like you can tell a fan that's never been to Talladega or a race that you need to go and tailgate per se and get the experience. And this, to me, if you were a first-time fan, if you did not leave there at Talladega excited about Talladega, then you need to find another sport.
And I want to say, I think that considering how it ended, if it had ended with, and I'm not picking on anybody, if it had ended with Joey Logano or William Byron or someone that's that's won a super speedway before, that you just a name that doesn't galvanize a lot, and not a first time winner and all that stuff. If it had ended with that, with the exact same scenarios of everything, including and without the celebration, I think people would have walked away from Talladega going, "Ugh, again, really." And
yeah, but
fortunately,
Doug,
we got to see
this kind of played for me out of, because had it not been for this celebration, and I'll finish with this on Talladega, is the fact that the big one altered, and the big one kind of got glossed over in the celebration. The fact that we lost so many good cars in that crash that you'll never know what kind of race this was turning out to be as we got closer to the end. But we lost so many good cars and so many good drivers in that crash that was not talked about a whole lot, even down to the fact that the crash was the front of the field, and it took so many cars out. And as we talked about earlier, the fact that it looked like only 4 cars survived the crash, that was the way it looked in the beginning. And if you were trying to follow that on TV, it took a few minutes to get sorted out. But that would have changed, that would have altered the whole complexion of Talladega. But you ended up with Carson Hocevar. I'm not upset about it, but we lost a lot of the commentary on the fact after the race of what happened during the race, and a lot of the cars that didn't get a chance to compete to the end. But as we've talked about the whole season, this is racing, and this is what it's all about. And you've got to be there at the end to win the race.
Well, you got to be there at the end for sure. And Tyler Reddick should have gotten his worst finish of the year Sunday. His worst finish so far has been 15th at Phoenix. He should have had his worst finish Sunday. He got involved in the big one, tore up pretty decently, and he cut a tire and hit the wall very late in the race, and he still finished 14th. He didn't even get his worst finish of the year. It's also his first time starting first this year that he didn't win. How about that, too? And I'm not even calling it pole position, because this is his second time starting first because of a rainout this year. He got rained out at Atlanta as well and won that race. So, yeah, very, very interesting dynamics all the way throughout. And I hated to feel like a fuddy-duddy, but I was going, oh my gosh, like, he can't. To me, it was when he slammed the car nose first into the wall, Hocevar did, while he was flopping out of it. And that's like, all he'd had to do is hit it a little bit harder at a different angle. He could have fallen out, and then if fall out, you got a loose race car and a person on the ground. And it's not the same as a street car. There's less clearance. So, I mean, is it going to run over? I don't know. I don't want to know. Right. But if it's the back of the car, you can get under it. I mean, I know I sound like an alarmist. There's people saying, oh, here's woke tofu crunchy guy over here trying to say this stuff. But like, just, y'all, here's what I said to Momo when I saw it, and we were both going, I was going, this is the most memorable celebration I've ever seen, and I said, this is the last time I'll ever see it. And I felt like the Hail Melon. It's one of those things. NASCAR had to ban the Hail Melon, the Ross Chastain Martinsville move, and I said they should go to Hocevar afterwards and say, here is $75,000 out of the France minted bank account. We are paying you. Don't ever do that again. Just here you go. And they can say whatever they want about it. And O'Donnell can say he's going to shotgun a beer every time he sees it. They should just say, don't ever do that again. Here you go, sir. Thank you, though. And they should go and pay Stenhouse's $75,000 back for punching Kyle Busch 2 years ago, too. All right? If we're really doing the Hell Yeah campaign, okay? So let me just run through. And again, who finished in the top 10 at Talladega? I'll tell you, it was very similar to how they ran in the top 10, because they couldn't pass where the flip. NASCAR knows it's a problem. They've said they're going to try to test in the offseason. That news came out since we've last spoken to you a vibe ago. They may try to do a preseason Thunder type thing, although, as Chase Briscoe said on Door Bumper Clear this week, they should do the test in November or December if they're going to actually change the cars and not wait till a month before the Daytona 500. But they're going to do something to try to fix it. How to fix it, no driver can agree on. But there is a lot of drag in these cars. So Hocevar won it. Chris Buescher driving the title ship sponsor of the race, Jack Links, his Ford, he finished second. He didn't have any Ford help with him anywhere nearby, because Alex Bowman, he was third. He was pushing Hocevar. Chase Elliott, when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got out of line, it kind of opened up a little hole on the top line for Elliott to squeeze in and get fourth. Elliott's a couple times a winner there. Zane Smith finished fifth in that race. And, he had a moment in that race where he was struggling. Stenhouse Jr. ended up sixth. Seventh went to Ross Chastain, who has not had a hint of a top 10 in a while. But finally some good news for Trackhouse there. They have been through it, okay? But he finished seventh, and he was right at the front of that the mess with Bubba Wallace there, that in stage 2 where the field came apart. I haven't heard anybody analyze the 26 car crash. I think they're calling it the third biggest crash in NASCAR history, something like that. I haven't heard anybody analyze that saying, oh, Ross Chastain did this, Bubba Wallace did that. It's just that what a lot of drivers, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, they were saying in the Care Center after I'll finish the top 10 in a moment, they were saying these cars, you really can't push that well. The bumpers are round. You don't have a pocket of air that keeps you off of somebody. You go up to hit them, and it's easy to get out of control. And so when everybody's really going for it, it's kind of hard to make moves because you could get someone out of shape really quickly, and the momentum kind of didn't match up there, and Bubba got turned in front of the field. That's what it seemed to look like there. Whoever's fault was what. But Chastain was 7th. 8th went to Austin Cindric, who's now got a year without winning. His last win was in this race a year ago. Noah Gragson finished 9th, and Kyle Busch gets his first top 10 of the year. And Devin, how do they thank his new crew chief, Jim Pullman, for Kyle Busch getting the first top 10 for Richard Childress Racing the entire season?
Yeah, they say, thank you for getting our top 10, but it's time for you to go.
He has been reassigned to the competition. Reassigned in the competition department, and Austin Hill's crew chief, who had a lot of success with him for 3 years of the O'Reilly Series, 22, 23, 24. Andy Street is now the crew chief of the number 8. Andy Street did work with Kyle Busch last year when Randall Burnett had a suspension, okay? So that was your top 10 in the race. Quickly looking at the point standings here. Who would have guessed 10 races into the 2026 campaign that Carson Hocevar would be higher in the points than Christopher Bell, than William Byron, than Bubba Wallace, than Joey Logano, than Chase Briscoe. But Carson Hocevar is 8th in the points. Your leader in the points by 110 is Tyler Reddick. He leads Denny Hamlin. Ryan Blaney, the top 3 stayed the same. Chase Elliott gains 2 spots up to 4th. That's because the 2 drivers he leaped over, Ty Gibbs, has a streak of top 6s or streak of top 10s. Actually, I got to look at the Kansas results. I can't remember where I think he finished okay, Kansas. But Ty Gibbs had been on a heater lately. He crashed twice. He was in the big one and then crashed right afterwards. He is now 5th in points. Kyle Larson falls to 6th. He finished last in that race. Chris Buescher up 4 spots to 7th. Carson Hocevar, this is how close the points are. Carson Hocevar gained 4 spots by winning. He's 8th in the points. 9th is Christopher Bell, and 10th is Brad Keselowski. Byron is down to 11th. Oof. Bubba Wallace is down to 12th. So Bubba Wallace went from like 3rd to 11th to 8th to 12th. That's how close these points are, and those are each week there. Ryan Preece, 13th in the points. He crashed on the last lap. Daniel Suarez also wrecked at one point. I just lost my spot on the page there. Sorry about that. Suarez, though, still in the top 16. Spire Motorsports has 2 drivers in the playoffs. Suarez is 14th. Joey Logano is down to 15th, and he is only 8 points ahead of Austin Cindric in 16th, and that is only 4 points to the good of Chase Briscoe, who fell out of the playoff standings after getting into them for the first time, now 17th in the points. Any other takes from Talladega before we look quickly back at O'Reilly and the ARCA series and anything there? The trucks were off this weekend, but anything from that race, anything you saw, guys?
No, I think from a business standpoint, it looked like this race weekend was really successful for Talladega. They're getting ready to do renovations. Cletus McFarland almost winning the ARCA race on Saturday, and then you had the moment with Carson Hocevar. I thought it was a really good weekend, and it goes to that, what I said earlier, the Hell Yeah campaign. But that's kind of my take from Talladega, but I do want to point something about the point standings. I'm surprised with Daniel Suarez and where he's at right now. He's 14th, around there in the point standings. Pretty good.
Yes,
didn't expect 14th. To see 2 Spire cars in the point standings. And your point about Carson Hocevar, I would believe you about him being in the chase this year, but being ahead of all those drivers that you listed was a little bit of a surprise, and it's cool to see him in the top 10 and that they're here. And I think that win on Sunday is a statement win from Spire Motorsports saying, hey, look, we're here. We're putting ourselves on the map now. This isn't a fluke win.
And it wasn't just some fluke. He didn't drive through it like James Buescher in the O'Reilly race in 2012 at Daytona, where he went 12th to 1st on the last lap. And it didn't feel like he made some brilliant move to take the lead and take control of the race. They were just drag racing 2 lines, and you couldn't really get out of line. But he didn't choke in the big moment. And I want to point this out too. Dan, I want to see what you think about this, all right? So I don't try to overstate the Hocevar's kind of like Earnhardt thing, but they have similar, and throw Tony Stewart and young Kyle Busch in there too. They have these similar hard-nosed, just get the F out of my way, I don't care traits. All right. There was a point coming out of turn 4 where Chris Buescher, I feel like for a split second, looking at the replay a couple of times, could have cleared both lines. And maybe with a different package or a different set of circumstances, he could have jostled back and forth, controlled both of them through the tri-oval, forced them to get 3 and 4 wide to try to take the lead or something. All right. I have a feeling, as unflappable as I think Chris Buescher is, that in that split second, and he probably wishes he did that, but he knew he had Carson Hocevar to the inside and not Alex Bowman. Not to name another driver, not whoever, not Daniel Suarez or something like that. He had Carson Hocevar, who has just a little less GAF than the others and has not won a race before. And in that split second, he's like, hey, I'm just going to hold my line. We're drag racing here. I think that the Intimidante, as some people have nicknamed that Black 77, might have had a 1% factor in Chris Buescher not changing lanes. And if you were going to argue against me, you would say, well, Carson Hocevar had a chance from the bottom lane to clear both lines too and didn't do it. But I don't know. Buescher was clear in turn 4. So I don't know. Dan, am I overstating that?
I think you had such a mix of drivers in that last 2 laps that was experienced, unexperienced, that you could not predict who you were going to go with or what move you could make that would be successful, that would not either get you in the wall, get the pack in the wall, or get you to the rear of the field in a short period of time. I think that based on the fact that you don't have the practice anymore that you had in previous decades, years, that lent itself to the outcome you had. Because there was one thing I did notice as they were in that last lap is that Chase backed off of the car he was behind, trying to make a gap. I think he had thoughts of making a run on the outside if he could have got a gap big enough to have gotten a run. But everybody was pushing so hard that no one was able to back up and get a gap going because everybody was pushing so hard. It was kind of like the deal that caught Bubba. You had such a run on that pack when he moved up. You couldn't kill the run. The driver behind him wasn't the problem. It was the driver that was probably about 7 positions back that was pushing the train. And when you get to the line, no one made a move based on the fact that I feel like the experience level of, do I trust that I can push this guy and he's going to survive this, or will I wreck with him? There just was not the level of confidence there in that last lap to make the move that I feel like would have been a hero or zero move to have been a winner, because the gamble was too big.
That's a great point. Is if you know you're running top 10, and what's the point of getting out of line and trying to finish 19th? It's kind of the reverse of Kyle Busch of the Daytona 500, where he just said, I'm going to back out, run 30th, and let him crash, and he drove up to 16th. It's almost just the same. It's the same gamble there. And now, without the win in your in, the conversation was totally different in this race. It's like no talk about, Hocevar playoffs and, it's too bad that Alex Bowman could have won his way into the playoffs. All he got to do is get into the top 30 in points. None of that talk. Zane Smith finished 5th. Ricky Stenhouse, none of that talk. It was just who's going to go get the win, who's going to grab the stage points, and the stage points mattered. And here's how much they mattered. The fuel strategy that we saw in that weird, prolonged, double the amount stage 1. That was the stage, and I don't have the stats, but I bet that had the biggest number of green flag passes per lap in a way because of all the different strategies. Once they got into a 2-wide pack, you couldn't really couldn't really break that Lego block up, if you will. But when they made that first pit stop, they were all over the place, and the RFK cars pitted long because they were trying to one stop stage number one, and I believe they did. Ryan Preece pitted, and I listened to him because he was the leader when he pitted. Crew Chief Derek Finley says, "Go when I tell you to. Go on me," I think he said. And then somebody stepped on their mic on the radio, and Priest couldn't hear the go signal and had to guess, and they didn't get enough fuel in. And Priest, I've never heard him melt down on the radio the way I'd heard him melt down. I mean, just effing, just all just because he's like, "What the f is wrong with our radios? What's going on? Who did that?" And then he was begging him, "Can you tell me exactly what I need to save since we didn't get enough fuel in because I still need to go up and get stage points?" It wasn't, "Screw it, we're going for the win." That these stage points, I'm telling you, difference maker, especially this year because you don't have the points reset literally one time this year, and it's for the chase. So, all right, that was Sunday. See how it plays out. Got what, 3 more drafted races left this year? We're halfway point on our drafting races already.
One more thing before you move on, and that is the fact that I think everybody has resigned themselves to the fact that, yes, they want to run good. Yes, they want stage points, but they realize that consistency is what's going to get you this championship. And that was the thing before in championships, one before you had the playoffs where when you're in, consistency was where it was at. More important than anything else going on. And just like the outcome on Sunday where they raced to the line and nobody got out of line and not a lot of change there at the last. Consistency is what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's a great point. Well, we will see how it plays out, boys. Let's look a little differently there. Now, a lot of people said, and I didn't get to watch it live. I watched the replay. I was on an airplane on Saturday coming back from Slovenia, but the O'Reilly race won by Corey Day, they were just slicing and dicing the whole time. Something else that was a difference maker there, boys, is the RCR cars. And I know Austin Hill had a little bit of some problems that set him back a little bit, but they were not dominant. And I think the field decided we're not going to let these guys lead. And I think that the others had caught up to him a little bit as well. It was Corey Day in a drag race. I mean, you kind of had no idea who exactly was going to win that deal. It was wide open there at the end, and Corey Day goes to victory lane. Either of you guys get to watch Saturday, and what do you think about Day's breakthrough?
I watched the race on Saturday, and I thought it was a really good race. It provided a lot of strategy that I hadn't seen before and a lot of differences, but Day ran a great race, and no doubt about it. And you're right. They seem to, Childress cars seem to suffer pretty much, and nobody gave them a break anyway. Whenever they did get their chance to run, they never gave them a break.
Yeah, no doubt. Corey Day was the winner. Brent Cruz almost became a first-time winner, and he got pretty close to Rockingham, too. He ended up finishing second. Sheldon Creed finished third and has really emerged as somebody that could put it to Justin Allgaier, who seems to be the preeminent championship contender now, though Corey Day is up there swiping blows right with him. Former Talladega winner Sammy Smith ended up fourth. Jeremy Clements was fifth. The rest of the top 10, Dean Thompson, Jesse Love, Brandon Jones, Parker Retzloff, and Austin Green. Retzloff and Green needed good finishes there. They have had some tough stuff lately. And the 11th place finisher, fellas, J.J. Yaley for Hettinger Racing, number 5. They started the year as a new team in that series. Very little Ford support left of the O'Reilly series anymore. It was them and AM Racing. AM Racing, who thought they had been sold over the offseason, then that got undone. They packed up 3 or 4 weeks ago and have not come to the track with Nick Sanchez since then. I asked J.J. Yaley at Bristol and talked about it on PRN. Hey, man, what's kind of the status with the team? There's some chatter that they're kind of only hanging on. He's like, well, they have incentive to run the whole year because of this Winner's Circle program. They finished 11th at Talladega. Yaley said they've been putting him in the car to get some better finishes. and they are not entered as of now, as we record on Tuesday afternoon. They are not entered into the Texas race, meaning there is no Ford for the first time in over 30 years in the O'Reilly Series entered in the race there. Dan, you've talked a lot about Ford being very particular about where they're spending their money. You know, they've got F1 Red Bull efforts. They're obviously very invested in the Cup Series. They've got a few Truck Series teams as well. But Dan, that's tough. I mean, you're with Blue Ovals almost your whole time in racing, man. That's tough to see them not there in NASCAR's second series.
Yeah, it also shows you just how important it is to have a manufacturer either support you or not support you. And this is where we're at in today's racing, is if you don't have that support, because we look across the board, look at drag racing as well. The Pro Stock Series and drag racing itself, Ford is hurting as well in it, and we don't see many Fords running at all, if any, and this goes across the board. And it's kind of been one of those things for me. In racing, money talks, BS walks. So you get down to the fact that you don't have many Fords running, and you look and you see the lack of support, and it doesn't take long to figure that out.
No doubt, no doubt. With the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, I mean, it's all Chevy and a few Toyotas basically in that series. Justin Allgaier leads the standings. He's got 3 wins this year. 3 wins. They still have run one more race of the Cup Series. All right, they have not had an off weekend since we started at Daytona. And remember, they ran on Cup's off weekend back in Rockingham. 3 wins. He leads by 105 markers over Sheldon Creed. Jesse Love is minus 141 back, and Corey Day is only 4 points behind Love. All right, and then you got to go almost another 50 points back to Brandon Jones, 5th in the standings there. But Allgaier leads the series with 3 wins, and I'm kind of picking through the playoffs there. Raja Caruth holds the last chase position, I should say. He is 14 points to the good over Ryan Sieg. 14th in points, had a tough start to the year, so bad luck Sam Mayer. Did y'all see him save that car once, spinning late in that race? He drove all the way back up because the race stayed green, and then he got cleaned out on the last lap there, and there was also a pretty bad crash with Jeb Burton and a few others too on the last lap. But there were no truck races at Talladega. We'll save those for the chase. And then the ARCA Series, Isabella Robusto, was coming to the line to lead in overtime. It ended up being Cletus McFarland taking the lead and looking like he was going to do it and doing some side drafting and such. And then Andy Jankowiak, he and Will Kimmel was driving a road course car that hadn't been run in over 10 years, that had its front nose all beat into heck. And they paired up together, and Jankowiak gets his first win in a long time. Either of you guys see any of the ARCA race or any of the talk on social media or anything afterwards?
No, I got to catch a couple of laps of Cletus's onboard camera during my break on Saturday, but that was pretty much it.
I read he had over 100,000 people watching the onboard on YouTube alone. And how many people watch ARCA races in general? That's he brings a huge audience there. I'm okay that he didn't get approved to run the Talladega race. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago for the O'Reilly series, but I still think, I mean, it's honestly easier to run Talladega than it is to run a short track. I'm not sure, but he's figured it out on the drafting tracks, it looks like there. And what if he had won that race? Could they have entered him in as a late entry on Saturday? Probably not, but that would have been fun to watch. All right, now some other news. So we mentioned the Kyle Busch, Jim Pullman, that experiment or whatever it was is over with. Pullman's been reassigned. Tyler Reddick announced in the pre-race show on Fox, he made official what had been rumored, that he has signed an extension with 2311 Racing. I have a feeling if that lawsuit goes a little differently, Tyler Reddick might not have even begun this season with 2311 Racing because they wouldn't have had a charter. All right, but he's back, and they never announced the terms and salary and all that kind of stuff, but he's going to be there locked down for a while. So that's the first big silly season thing to kind of fall into place, although there's very little question about it after his hot start to the year. Some other little things, we'll kind of work up to the bigger stuff, all right? Ryan Hunter-Reay is going to run the Indy 500 in a partnership between Arrow McLaren, who seems to just partner with whoever shows up, and Legacy Motor Club. Now, Arrow McLaren were the partners with Hendrick Motorsports for the Kyle Larson Double the last 2 years. This year, they're partnering with Jimmy Johnson and Legacy. Keep in mind, Jimmy Johnson was a Ganassi driver in IndyCar. We got all that straight? Okay. But Ganassi also runs Honda in IndyCar, and I'm sure Toyota wouldn't want to clash with that. That being Legacy Motor Club's automaker in NASCAR. So Ryan Hunter-Reay, former Indy 500 winner, former champion in that series. Then we had this. This became, and I'm not going to talk about Stephen A. Smith. We're not even going there, okay? But there were some comments that John Probst, the NASCAR competition wonk, made to Adam Stern at Sports Business Journal about the possibility of electric vehicles and CUVs, crossover SUVs, running and giving the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series its own identity. Because the trucks, no matter what the sponsor is, you call it truck. Cup Series, we call it Cup. O'Reilly Series has always been Busch, Nationwide, Xfinity, or O'Reilly. You have to go way back to calling them late model sportsman or Grand National or whatever, right? So when he made that comment, and it was kind of taken out of context a little bit, it was sort of a this could happen, makers want this, listening to him kind of thing. Man, people went off on social media. Let me go to the old school first, Dan. Now, we cringe at this idea about these domesticated looking cars becoming race cars, but my gosh, we are a stock car series that races sedans. I mean, we used to race Ford Tauruses, for God's sake. What is the uproar over the crossover SUV? What's this all about, man?
Doug, Devin, I see two major problems with this and probably a lot of minor problems, but number one, the sheer expense of this would prohibit anything like this happening. And if you're going to do this, it's going to be on the level of Cup first, because this plays into your second problem is you need a chain of being able to move race cars down the line, so to speak, because you're losing too much money. Because I would venture to guess now the teams are beginning to accumulate a large collection of race cars, which they are still raceable, but things change and we've built new cars. So we need a way to move these current Gen 7 Cup cars down the line. And I see that going into O'Reilly's next is the Gen 7 car will have to get into O'Reilly's next, because there is no other way to move this progression along to where that you can afford somewhere. We've got to find some way to race these Gen 7 cars somewhere else or in something else.
That's the thing, is they're running out of parts of the O'Reilly series. Dale Jr. had a theory. Couldn't you, just like we get stock manufacturers to make the different parts of the Gen 7, can't we keep the O'Reilly cars looking the same? I mean, they're driving cars in that series. Well, I guess the Camaros aren't made anymore. Never mind. I should take that back. But Supras and Mustangs, I guess there aren't any more Mustangs in the series. Okay, Supras. Boy, I'm just demolishing my own argument. But they're driving sporty cars that are raced, or run similarly, I guess. Couldn't you just get a stock manufacturer to start making those instead of the teams? Nonetheless, where do you get the OEM support for that? So, Devin, now let's come to the new school. We go from Boomer to Gen Z. We're skipping over me, all right? So, and we're skipping Gen X. But let's, Devin, I mean, would your friends be turned off by having, crossover SUVs racing? I've got a nice looking Kia EV6 in the garage outside. I mean, it's a sporty looking car. It's, we see the Mustang Mach-E's. Like, if there was a little bit of a hatchback on the back of a Mustang, if Ford ever sponsored in that series again, I mean, would that be so bad?
I mean, I think as long as the racing product is decent, I think you'll probably win some people over, but it would take a long time because it would be somewhat jarring to look at. Think about the first time you ever looked at a Tesla, right? That thing looked a little weird on the road when you first saw one. Or maybe even take it in today. Take a look at a Waymo that's out on the streets nowadays. But I think when you look at it, it's a culture thing when it comes with the manufacturers, and you have to look at their retail side of things with Ford. Are they making it? Do they really even make a sedan anymore? No, they have the Ford Explorer, the truck, the Mach-E, which I'm pretty sure they still make, the Bronco, and the Mustang. There's none of them that's that SUV, or not SUV, but
Sedan.
sedan.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Chevrolet as well. Toyota's the only one.
Chevy
Toyota,
doesn't even make the Camaro anymore.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. And also, too, the O'Reilly Auto Parts series lacks that identity now where the manufacturers don't know where to go. And if you look at a lot of the manufacturers that do make the sedans, they're all pretty much not in NASCAR except for Toyota. Because you look at Honda, they make them, or even Nissan, or...
Well, Honda makes the Accord still, doesn't it? I mean...
Say what?
Honda makes the Accord still, don't they?
Yeah. No, I'm saying all the manufacturers that do make sedans are not in NASCAR except for Toyota.
Yeah. And it seems to me the idea of attracting the OEMs could be a little bit faulty. But wouldn't we all agree? I think, Devin, you nailed it. Is we have the series that for the last, at least since the advent of the Gen 7 car, has been said, this provides the best racing. They used to say that about the trucks. This provides the best racing. It's like, don't fix this one. I mean, forget whether it's a crossover SUV, forget if it's an electric vehicle. I don't care. Like, just why would you mess with it? But the point is, at some point, it will be a dinosaur. At some point, yeah.
At what point, so if we want to keep the product that currently is with the O'Reilly cars, at what point do we switch to saying, all right, everybody's just going to run the same body, but we're going to put different stickers on it depending on the manufacturer you have? Hey, this guy's driving in a Ford, this one's in a Chevy, this one's in a Toyota. How long until that? Because I feel like that would solve the issue a little bit without having to go to SUV or go to electric cars, for instance. I think that's something that could solve it.
I think the Chevy and Toyota support would be out the window if that happened. You know, I don't know what the thinking is because you don't have win on Sunday, sell on Monday like in drag racing, right? You know good and gosh darn well you're not watching an actual Toyota drag race in NHRA. It's just, you know, that it's representing Toyota. I wonder how that would translate to NASCAR when it ultimately is supposed to be, quote, stock. You know, that's tough, man. It's a tough one to crack. I will say, I think the idea, the argument about identity of the series is not strong because the Busch series, the Nationwide, the Xfinity has always been Cup Light. They've always, now I say always, I know there was a point where they went to V6s and they've always been different, even if they had a slightly different wheelbase, but they generally looked like the same kind of cars. Generally. Even if they were slightly different, they sort of like, you know, and then the trucks are what were so different. Oh man, they're racing pickup trucks. So imagine if they had done in 2002, Dan, imagine if they had created the NASCAR minivan series. Celebrated the birth of Devin.
Yeah, but
with the minivan series.
This does away with your progression of getting rid of parts as a succession. You have such a hard time getting rid of or moving levels down to where that you have a way of getting rid of parts or cars, or it keeps you from obsolescence across the board. It makes it more affordable this way so that you have hand-me-down and maybe racing. We're off on a left turn here that I don't know that you can predict any of this, because if you think about the progression of NASCAR and where we've come to and where we're at, they're not worried as much now about expense. They're not worried about the things that I saw when I came into the sport they were more concerned with. So now maybe you're down to, you call Steve O'Donnell and you call Ben Kennedy and you say, y'all need to talk to a bunch of fans and ask them what they want and let them develop or come across with the kind of car, if it is a car like Devin was talking about, where the body's identically the same, you change the stickers and you have a crate motor or a spec motor and a program and a package, but you still have to be concerned with all the other things that go under the car, and that's all the parts that have to be made special for these cars, whether it be electric or whatever. You've got so many things that are different. That look at the tires themselves, because Goodyear has tried to get them off of the 15-inch tires onto the 18-inch tires, and it's going to come down to we're not going to manufacture across the board these brakes, these tires, this drive line, because I'm already having problems getting transmission and rear end components that we ran in Cup in the Gen 6 car. I can't even get those components anymore because there are no more hand-me-downs left, and everyone is utilizing this stuff in the O'Reillys and the truck and the short track, to where that now they are going away quickly, and the only way that you can procure any of these components is to buy them new, which is not even acceptable for a lot of people. They cannot afford them.
Well, and that's that's a great point. The affordability. I have long wondered. I've wondered aloud on this show. We asked Tommy Joe Martins about this when we had him on in the off season. Why in the world did they start at the top with trying out the new stuff and then go down? And it's just a simple matter of cost. Alpha Prime Racing, Tommy Joe Martin's team he co-owns, like, wouldn't be able to afford to do. And that's where I think NASCAR is a safety net. NASCAR with its billions would be able to step in if it's really trying to save the sport, so to speak, or utilize some of the R&D up top to develop things down low and come up. I do think on the bodies, if you kept the same components down low, even if you change the size of the wheels, so we're not talking about see, the Cubs car is just fundamentally a different car than before. But if you kept the exact same stuff under the O'Reilly car, even if you change the size of the wheels like Goodyear wants, that you could still have a very similar product to what you have now. Use the same science as before, and you'd have these blocks out there. They'd be the Chevy block, the hopefully Ford block. Please come back, Ford. And the Toyota block. And I think that would be the best viable thing. But here's the deal. NASCAR, when they tested the electric vehicle, that was throwing a balloon out to the OEMs. Hey, we could do this if we wanted to. And that was a crossover SUV. David Reagan said it handled tremendously, had a ton of power. Of course, it doesn't sound like it, but had a ton of power, drove totally differently, and was very promising. But it was also giving a nod to the manufacturers, and then you didn't really hear much about it. This wasn't done by accident. That comment and that interview with SBJ and all that stuff, that was not done by accident. That was meant, in my opinion, this is Doug's opinion, but I've seen a few of these things before. So is Dan, so is Devin. This was done to test how people reacted to it. All right? And guess what? Everybody reacted just like they floated out playoff formats last year. When Devin and I were at Bristol last September, the drivers were getting asked, well, the rumor is that the playoffs are going to change to a 4-3-3 format, and you're going to have a 3-race run to the championship or something like that. That got floated out on purpose, man. That wasn't just like real chatter. That was, people started saying this was probably going to be the predominant format on purpose. So then it would make its way out there so that people could comment on it and they could gauge the interest in it. All right. Same thing here. Mike Ford, NASCAR Communications, who co-hosts the Hauler Talk podcast, which I highly recommend if you want to be a more informed race fan, you listen to. He said there are not going to be crossover SUVs next season or the year after that or even the year after that. So hopefully we'll figure out a better solution or a more finite solution before then. I say they. Ain't my job. All right. A last piece of news, and we'll look ahead quickly to Texas and get you out of here in around an hour or so, maybe. We'll see. Is something that I'm not surprised by, but I also didn't see it coming now. And that is end of an era as far as the people that are the CEO of NASCAR. It's always been a France. It's been Bill France Sr., then Jr., then Brian, then a DUI, and then Jim. And Jim France, Brian France's uncle, Bill France Jr.'s brother, Bill France Sr.'s son, is no longer the CEO of NASCAR, being replaced not by Steve Phelps. He got annexed before the season after the lawsuit and everything, and then the unflattering texts. Steve O'Donnell becomes the CEO. Ben Kennedy gets moved up and basically to OD's old older role before he was president, which was, chief operating officer. Ben Kennedy, of course, is the great grandson of the founder of NASCAR and Lisa France Kennedy's son, and was former driver. Dan and I were both at Ben Kennedy's very first race in a car that we know of anyway, at Gresham Motorsports Park. He won a truck race a few years ago, transitioned into the executive roles, has been key in changing and revamping the NASCAR schedule and getting new venues put on the schedule. And now he is second in command to Steve O'Donnell, who's been nearly 30 years in the sport and has gone from running victory lane to being on the competition side to being above that to now being the head dog. Dan, you and I had a brief talk about this yesterday, but how do you digest the news? Do you think the result of the lawsuit is what brought it forward, or is it just, hey, Jim France wasn't looking to do this very long, he's in his 80s anyway?
I really feel like that you could, across the board, come across with a number of reasons why he stepped down in the role he was in, not from the family organization, obviously, because they own too many assets, and they are, at the end of the day, they are NASCAR. So it's just a different face, and I think that moving forward, that was the progression of the way things needed to be. I feel like at the head of this deal is going to be different faces as we move forward, but the leadership will still be as it was. And I don't think that's going to change very much. Behind the scenes, it's just not going to be the face of NASCAR as we see it. And what is it they say? Perception is truth. So they're going to say this is the new and improved NASCAR, but really behind the scenes, it's the same people, and the decisions will just be run, I feel, across a few more new faces, because I feel like they do have a little bit different direction that they're trying to go in. And as I've said a long time ago, a lot of this we're having to figure out as we go. And I think this is the best way to do it. And I think that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to satisfy a lot of different factions here. And I don't see much better way to do this. And we have no idea where this is going to sift out at. It's kind of like asking yourself, when will we get a new O'Reilly's car? When will other things change? Well, I think that they're like the rest of us. They're trying to figure this out as they go, because I know they want the best for the fans and the competitors. And it's that balance. It's kind of like taking a car to Talladega or Daytona. It's that balance that you're looking for. And I think that they're trying to seek that. And I applaud them for what they're doing, because at least they're trying.
Well, no doubt. And they knew that something needed to shake up just with what came to light. And I think what we've already seen really since just before COVID, we've seen the mentality shift. I think that we'd have better taste in our mouths if we didn't have the whole lawsuit thing, but I think that had to, crack a few more skulls too, just to really get the light to come in, I guess, like that. Steve O'Donnell right now, just the perception, the way he's being talked about, he's probably in, and I could murder someone on Main Street territory right now. It's like honeymoons, like, oh man. But I'm telling you, if we go through a few months of things getting, and he's not new to NASCAR at all, but if we go through a few months of things not going well or whatever, that will change quickly. I think people's patience for it is a lot less. And Dan, a lot easier for somebody else that's not a France to take a fall, right?
Yeah, it's not Jim France's neck now on the chopping block per se, even though he is, and the whole France family still is, but he is the face. And perception is the truth, and perception is that Steve O'Donnell is now the face of NASCAR. So yeah, heads could roll, and I'd be lying if I said his wasn't on the chopping block.
Whoever's in charge is. It doesn't mean they're in
They're in
trouble. It just
charge.
means the accountability goes to you. Jim France still maintains his majority ownership. Lisa France Kennedy has the other portion, basically, and Jim France still the chairman of the board. So, Devin, your reaction to the news? I know you're covered over in cheese curds and what's it's not ice cream, the custard. Sorry, cold custard. But you're covered over in Culver stuff last week, but I know you got a chance to look at the news there.
Yeah, I thought it's quite interesting the time period that it's dropped. Not surprising because I feel like a move like this would eventually happen. Interesting that it's not within the family line, which is interesting to see that. I thought they would have tried to keep it in the family, but I wonder if this potentially sets them up for a future sale. They were talking about it in 2019. I wonder if this makes it potentially easier to do it in the future. I mean, F1, they're what, Liberty Media? Maybe NASCAR gets sold in the future. We'll see. But I don't expect any immediate changes because it's an internal hire. They're not bringing anybody in the outside. And you probably really won't see changes until next year at the earliest. But it's something to look for under new leadership. We've seen things change in NASCAR under new leadership in the past 10 years. Steve Phelps, O'Donnell, all of them. So we'll see. The change is going to continue.
Hey, and Steve Phelps, up until what happened in the trial, was well looked at. He was. I think those text messages did him in because he was more progressive or modern or however you want to put it out as far as the negotiations with the teams as Steve O'Donnell was, from what I remember reading and the texts and just what they said on the stand and things like that. So let's see now. Steve O'Donnell seems to be the, hey, I want to have a beer with you guy. So let's see what it's about. I will say NASCAR's officiating this year. No one's perfect. There were so many discussions in the first quarter of last season about overtimes and yellow flags, blah, 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 blah. They seem to have been maybe not always consistent, but it seems to be received a lot better by drivers, stakeholders, and the fans alike. I think something has changed for the good there. That they've definitely been very shy about the caution flag, for sure. Those were falling like candy at one point, and they've been more shy about that. All right, so we've gone. Mention of Kansas, deep dive Talladega, first winner Hocevar, and the celebration. We've gone through some news. We've talked about the leadership shakeups and God Almighty crossover SUVs. Let's look ahead to Texas. Here's what we've got this weekend, okay? It's a triple header weekend, no ARCA, so there are 2 high-limit races. I heard Mark Faber, the head of Texas Motor Speedway, say that on PRN's Fast Talk. Go PRN.com, the podcast providers there with Doug Rice, Brad Gilley, Andrew Curlin, that they're having 2 high-limit races there. So we have the ARCA series is off until Watkins Glen. By the way, kind of catch you by surprise that Watkins Glen is next after Texas in May. What? That date has floated around a little bit these last couple of years. So ARCA's off until next weekend. Trucks are Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Saturday 3:30 Eastern. Cup Series 3:30 Eastern on Sunday. All right. Defending winner of the Cup Series race. Anybody remembered that? Driver who has not won since then, much like Austin Cindric hasn't won since Talladega last year. This driver.
Ryan Blaney?
No, Ryan Blaney's won. He's won Phoenix this year.
That's right.
And won a few races last year.
No.
Since I mentioned Austin Cindric and Dan mentioned Ryan Blaney, I would say that points you in the right direction. A driver who has not won.
Could be a Ford then. Could be Joey Logano.
It could be Joey Logano. Joey Logano, who kind of survived some overtime madness when Michael McDowell was leading there, and he threw kind of big block and took himself out of contention. I was on pit road during that race, and it was Lucky Logan, Joey Logano, going to victory lane there. And we talk about Kyle Larson's winless drought. Kansas moved up in the schedule this year. So, but Joe Logano's now gone a year and doesn't have the playoffs to fall back on. Okay, so there you go. But that Cup race, 3:30 Eastern, all of that on Performance Racing Network and the various places you can listen to that. Drivers, now, what I did is I picked the Gen 7 era, which I believe is the last 4 races at Texas. I'm not including the All-Star stuff they did there because I think Texas has been 1 race a year since 2022, since this has happened. So I picked up the last 4 races in Texas. William Byron, the most points in those, by 18 points over Tyler Reddick. Byron, Reddick, and Logano have each won a race in the Gen 7 car at Texas, and they are the top 3 in the points there. The only other driver to win one is Chase Elliott. So Byron has only led 70 laps. Tyler Reddick, 144. Logano, only 36. 4th most points, but not a winner in the Gen 7 car at Texas. Kyle Larson. And the rest of your top 10 in Gen 7 car points at Texas: Daniel Suarez, Ross Chastain, names you might not have expected, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, and Chase Elliott. Eric Jones, 11th. That might be kind of a dark horse. Could he get a good run kind of deal there? So anything you're looking for this weekend, boys? Texas has seemed to kind of warm up on people after being hated for a while.
Yeah, I would say I want to see if that trend continues because we've seen it in the attendance and the racing there's just gotten better in the past couple of years. Really since 2023, I would say it's starting to get really good there.
Yeah, certainly has there. Dan, anything you're looking for this weekend?
Kind of looked at this being I think with Talladega, we've seen the end of as I think of them as the anomaly races. And I think now we're getting into the nitty gritty of the races that you are going to start looking at the beginning for some teams, the middle maybe of consistency, that this will start the trend, I think, on what we can pretty much now say is going to be a trend for several races or a line of races that we can finally say, this is who shakes out, this is who doesn't. Because it's kind of like the anomaly of Talladega, different winners, different faces, different people running, experience, non-experience. I think now you're going to see the shakeout of what the season really is.
No doubt. And kind of wait to see, hey, Hendrick car is coming to bat. All right. We talked about that too, Dan. Just
my point exactly.
Yeah. And the Hendrick car, like we said, William Byron, best one in the Gen 7 era at Texas. And I think they'll be showing their faces really well in the O'Reilly race because Kyle Larson, in substitution for an injured Connor Zilisch a year ago, before Zilisch had won any races last year, Kyle Larson won in the 88 car at Texas Motor Speedway, and he will be in that 88 for Junior Motorsports this weekend as well. Some other drivers, switching places. I'm not going to name every single one, but Connor Zilisch is in the 1 this weekend, so Carson Kvapil moves to the 9. With Larson in the 88, Raja Karuth moves back to the 32. Then, Joey Gase's got a few TBAs entered into that race there. And then Austin Dillon will be in the 3 car at Texas, not Cletus. Austin Dillon will be in the 3 car there for Richard Childress Racing. Let me look at the truck side real quick and just see, because I think Kyle Busch is entered. That's kind of the notable one. And I think he's going for, if I heard correctly, his seventh Truck Series win, if I'm not mistaken, or 7th win at Texas overall. So let's see here. Kyle Busch will be in the 7 for Spire Motorsports. Brandon Jones will be in the 1 truck for Tricon Garage. Free agent truck will be Parker Kligerman for Colleague Racing in the number 25 this weekend. That'll be fun to see. Parker Kligerman, good for him. Just scan down real quick here. A lot of these full-time drivers. Devin's ex-girlfriend, Tony Breidinger, will be in the number 27 for Rackley War Racing. Are y'all still together? I can't, is it? No? Okay. Connor Jones will be in the 42 for Nice Motorsports. Ross Chastain will be in the truck race in the 45 machine. Corey Roper, here's one. Corey Roper, they used to run their own team there. Corey Roper will be in the 62 for Halmar Friesen Racing. Truck 1 Bristol with Christopher Bell at the wheel. Hocevar, who won his first ever truck race at Texas a few years ago, will be in the number 77 for Spire Motorsports. Those are the notables anyway. There's a couple others that have switched out there too. All right, we've looked ahead to Texas here, boys. Let's take her into the garage there. Williams Sawallich will be at the Tricon Garage number 5. That's what I left off too. Any final thoughts, Devin, for you?
Yeah, that thing with Breidinger, I'm still waiting for her to accept my LinkedIn invitation request.
LinkedIn. Linked up. LinkedIn. Okay. You go inviting drivers on LinkedIn? Is that a thing?
Some of them, not many.
To the women? Is that?
It doesn't hurt.
He's waiting for Taylor Reimer's LinkedIn request too, man. Corey Himes after you, bro. All right, so that's it. We're waiting on Tony Breidinger. That's your final thought. Is Tony Breidinger, respond right here. Hashtag accept Devin Kupka's LinkedIn request. All right, got it. Dan, final thoughts?
Final thoughts are it's a sad day because you said that there are no Fords entered into the race. This is just beyond comprehension for me to believe that we've come to this, and that for me, as much as I love Fords, and hey, I guess Chevrolet's going to win.
Or 12.
What else can I say? But it really is sad to me. It's just the fact that I hope it's not going to be an omen for things to come in other series as well. But goes back to one of the things we talked about a few minutes ago on a different note, is the fact that the progression of cars coming into O'Reilly's. I really look to see the Gen 7 car drop into O'Reilly's in the foreseeable future. I've not heard anything about that. I've not heard any idle talk about that. It's just the progression of things that have to happen. And I really feel like this is one that needs to happen fairly quick.
Interesting. Where does that leave the trucks then? I don't know. I mean, are they just their own?
The trucks have to be looked at. They have to be in the progression of things. But once those components that are run in the O'Reilly's car drop into the truck series, then their future is pretty much sealed for the next couple of years. So we've got time to look at other things that could happen to the truck series as well, and moving them forward in their progression.
Yeah. Got to see where that goes there. Got spice up that truck racing a little bit too. I feel like it's tailed off from what it used to be as well. They have some of the issues that the Cup cars suffering from there. A final thought for me is 2 drivers. Well, there are probably more than 2, but 2 I'm going to highlight made series debuts a series up this weekend. Daniel Dye, for all the fire he's taken there, rightfully so, for his comments made on a live stream about IndyCar driver David Malukas. Dye has been back at the ARCA series. Dye has also gone to the Cup series with BJ McLeod Motorsports, and he finished, I believe it was 24th in his first ever Cup race. I saw a rendering of the hauler. Like, I thought this was just a one-off thing, but there was a Champion Containers number 78 hauler. Is that what's going on there? Is he going to run more races, or do they just decide to pay to have a hauler wrap? That's strange. Secondly, Tyler Ankrum made his O'Reilly Series debut. He debuted in trucks in 2018. He's only 25 years old. He's got 2 truck wins to his name, but he ran for Jordan Anderson Racing in their number 32. Unfortunately, got caught up in an early crash, finished 32nd there. But 2 drivers that have been in our lexicon for a few years now go up and make their debuts. And it's easy to gloss over all that because we just talk about the winners, but see where they go from there. Thank you all for tuning in and being along with us and putting up with us not being here for you last week. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, goprn.com, and of course on YouTube. If you know people in your world that are trying to get beefed up on racing, or they can't get enough racing podcasts and they would like a 12th one to listen to, we could be in your top 12. Share with them. We would love to be your 12th favorite NASCAR podcast, all right? But we're so thankful to the Performance Racing Network for having us in their cadre of great shows, and you should check those out. Fast Talk, Garage Pass. They've also got a Racer's Odds show on there with Andrew Curlin, David Stiles. So many other good things there in that portfolio. So for Dan and Devin, I'm Doug. We'll be back with you next week to recap all that was in Texas and look ahead to Watkins Glen as we turn left and right yet another time. This has been 5 to Go. God bless y'all, and we'll talk to you soon.